participants are in listen-only mode.
Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar, Searching and Querying in Maximo. My name is Betsy Ambrosius, and along with me leading our webinar is Chris Winston, Project Admin and one of our project managers. Today, Chris will be demoing specific examples on querying and searching in Maximo. Before I turn it over to Chris, just some reminders, this webinar is being recorded and all phone lines have been muted. We will be sending out the recording by the end of the week, and we will be answering all of your questions at the end of the webinar, so please be sure to submit your questions in the field box. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Chris.
Thank you, Betsy. And just a reminder, there's a handout which you can download in the handout section that's available to you, which is the slides that I'm going over here. So again, thanks for attending, or for those of you who are listening later on the recording, just for registering for the webinar. Please note, this is just a primer to help you along with your exploration of Maximo, and there's no substitute for formal training. Remember to visit our registration page after the webinar to request individual topics that you'd like to see in future webinars. We'll plan to accommodate some of those into All right, so a little bit of housekeeping. Before we go too far, you might want to use two screens, or if not two computers, for the webinar and for future ones as well. You can try some of these things out as we go in your own development environment, or you can just observe. I'll essentially go through them twice. Once here in the slides, which will be a reference for you, and then again, many of them I'll actually cover in demonstration. Beyond that, this is pretty much our agenda. We want to talk about why we're querying in the first place, discussing why, where it's useful. We want to look at basic capabilities per application. A reminder to let Maximo do the heavy lifting and why, writing the structured query language query for you. And administrators are reminded to leverage relationships to extend advanced search. We'll talk more about that, and we'll see some examples, things that we've done for people who've called in and requested changes. And before I go on, just a couple of reminders. Based on some of the questions I've received, it's kind of a general question around KPIs and queries. KPIs can be built from queries, but they live at system level. They do have some security controls, so you can limit who can actually access them. Queries live at system level as well, but they do not have separate security. So if a user can read the application, you can access the queries. So the thing to really keep in mind in both cases, if you have things that are site-specific, you want to make sure that that is coded inside the structured query language of your query. And then that, of course, will be available to you in the KPI. All right, so let's talk about why query. And when you first start with Maximo, you only have a few records. And your list tab will be something you can go through in a matter of seconds, define what you want. The search method loses favor rather quickly during the first day, most likely, as most often there are hundreds of records created. More often, new Maximo installs start out with hundreds, if not thousands, of records because there's already data available from other systems or another system, and they get things going pretty quickly. So on the list tab, you have a filter area, fields, and the advanced search to allow you to query. What can you do with this list of records? Well, you have the ability to list. From there, you can select one or more records, and you can download the list via the download button. You can change status, create a work pack. You can build a query-based report. You can use that report as a download or to print it. Some people will build them because it allows them the flexibility to add more columns when in other cases to add more columns to the list tab, it requires a change in application designer and affects everybody. You build a query-based report, it's just yours, or you can make it public, and it's pretty, again, more flexibility. And you can also make the query-based reporting perpetual, using statuses, and as things change, they fall off the report. Or date ranges, such as report date greater than 7, or greater than 14 days ago, or greater than 30 days ago, or whatever you'd like. So you have flexibility that you can build into the query. You can also use it to build a key performance indicator, and with most everything, it's all typically around if the person has security rights. But since the query has the structure of query language in it, you can use it. There's a button, and I'll show you that, to just quickly build a KPI, and then from there you can finish off the other information in the KPI. But at least the where clause has been built and verified by you displaying and verifying the list of records that you're looking at. All right, so let's talk about query capabilities. Each application has a standard set of capabilities from the list tab. You'll have access to save queries if there are any that are public or private to you. And now leverage structured query language that's already been built and tested. There's a find navigation item to help you find your saved query when there's a long list, which I'm sure some of you have. You have the quick key search where you have the exact value. So if you know the exact work order number, you just type it in, and regardless of what you're looking at, you should be able to go right to it and to the main tab. Or asset number or location, and so on. The list tab filter gives you multiple fields that you can fill in with different criteria, just keeping in mind as you fill in the additional fields, it's an and condition. So field 1 and field 2 need to be satisfied to present your records. The advanced search and, of course, the quick search menu, which gives you access to the advanced search as well, which is new for 7.6, has a number of things on it as well. Attribute search for searching classification, specification, attribute data, as opposed to the object and attribute portion of the Maximo design and the tables. Your more search fields, which is just more fields beyond the fields listed on the list tab. And something I forgot about, which I just added, view search tips. I'll make sure I cover that as well, because there is help in Maximo for searching in Maximo, and it's available from the list tab in each application. All right, to get a better view of these, let's take a look at the screen itself, and we're just going to kind of walk through the areas. The common query elements we'll look at first. Save queries. And this list, of course, can be huge. It's the all records and all bookmarks are pretty common. They'll be there if you don't have anything else, but more than likely you will have other queries available to you. And if you don't, we're going to talk about saving queries, and then you'll be able to do that as well. We move on to the quick key search. Again, when you have the specific, in this case, the asset application, so you'll need the asset number. Work order and work orders, PO and purchase orders, and so on. And the list tab filter, the filter area, it should be available when you open the application. Sometimes it's not, and there's a filter toggle next to the word filter, or the word filter itself is toggle as well, which will open and close that area. So that is available to you as well. Now, advanced search is going to be available to you from the new quick search menu. You'll also notice that you'll see it's available still on the application. These are controlled, under the list banner where you see advanced search, save query, and bookmarks, that's actually controlled via system property. So you may or may not see it. The quick search menu, however, that's new. That's going to be available to you regardless. and it has a consolidation of all of the items from advanced search, safe query, and bookmarks all in one space. The where clause will give you access to the actual structured query language, or SQL, that Maximo has to use to run your query. The more search fields for the additional fields beyond those that are shown on the list tab. And it will not be everything. So if you do find there are fields, especially extra fields have been added to the application that you need to have them added, they can be added to the search menu through Application Designer. Attribute search, we'll actually take a look at this if you're searching for, something based on speed, and this is specification for RPMs, and you want to look at a range. We'll show you how you can use that as well. Search tips, save queries, and so on. If we look at the list tab, just keep in mind, the filter's editable. Your administrator can add fields to the filter list on the list tab. They should be heavily used. It's just a manner, because you don't want to have, well, I know I don't want to have to scroll the screen left to right. And I've got enough to do up and down, so it's just useful to try and keep everything in the same window. But yes, you certainly can add fields that will force you to scroll left and right, and it's a business decision, but it's something you'll have to make. All right, so this is not purchase order out of the box. There's a few modifications that have been made here. The history flag, for example, is available directly in this case because had a client request, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. I just looked today just to see, what they have. In the purchase order application, just for his 2 sites, they got 12,000 purchase orders dating back to 2005. And they tend to leverage the old ones and duplicate them, so it made a lot of sense for them to do that, or for us to do it, because they requested it, and it's done. It does give them the capability and flexibility to do more of their searching directly from the application list tab, as opposed to opening the advanced search, which was the goal. And it still didn't make the screen too wide to have to scroll. Receipts, vendor name, which is here, not part of the purchase order, but the application design will allow you to bring it in. You just won't be able to sort by it. We also have the vendor code, and in some cases, I've actually seen the vendor code removed and just the vendor name show up. Still available to you for filtering, and it's because the code isn't always that well known, but people know generally the name or pretty close, and it just helps them to get through it. So again, you think about the things that make sense, that are more useful to you within your environment. Those changes can be made to help you leverage the product. All right, so I talk about this, let Maximo write the structured query language for you. It's pretty important. It's generally more useful for you to be able to let Maximo do the quote-unquote heavy lifting. So I'm going to go over a few examples in terms of where that might be. Some different types of searches that you can do. Work orders, for example, hierarchy search, if you want to look at work orders related to a location or a location, all of its children and the assets associated. Date ranges, the advanced search now has that for you. In earlier versions, you had to kind of modify the structured query language on your own, but that's now available and you just need to fill in. Key point is that the fields need to be available to you on the advanced search. So actual start and actual finish, for example, out of the box are not available. If that's something you need to have them added. Line level. So purchase orders, you can search purchase orders based on a item or perhaps a description or something else that's on the line. So you have these additional capabilities. You're not just using the main object or the main record. You have the ability to search based on other criteria. You also have some special functions available to you. Exclude, not equal to, the exclamation point, or sometimes known as the bang. You also have some multiple select capabilities. Nulls, and the tilde in your LL tilde is the syntax that you need to use. I didn't make it up. It's just what it is. Main thing here is in cases where you want to look for data based on the fact that there's no data in a certain field, or not equal to null because there is some data in a certain field. The key point is no data or some data, not anything specific. He also has some special functions that relate to the current user, so :user, and I'll show you where that's actually applicable. And then those things that relate to dates. Get date, left, right, parenthesis, is the current date and time. That's SQL Server. In Oracle, it's sysdate. And it can be very useful for you in parameters to help you to find things based on that type of range, or sort of a perpetual range, just to give you some greater flexibility in utilizing it. We'll also take a look at extending the advanced searches and looking at relationships and how that actually comes into play to help you find your records based on things that are a little bit deeper into and related to the primary record that you're looking at. So, and these are just some of the examples. I'll show you a couple screens on this as well, but inventory data, I've had this at 3 different companies, same issue for different reasons. 2 of them had replaced their storeroom company, and all the records for that vendor were moved into the secondary vendor area because that's where the catalog numbers were. So the catalog numbers changed, but if you walk around the storeroom and you find a box, well, the old catalog number was written on the box, usually in magic marker. And as a consequence, people would pick it up, reference it, and it wouldn't work because they would search the catalog number of the main inventory record and not the catalog number of the inventory vendor record. So I'll show you how that actually can be added into the application, into the advanced search, and we'll actually take a look at that, and I'll demo that as well. Work order tracking, different reasons, but you have the ability to find work orders based on actuals, who reported time, an actual part number that's used, particularly in a couple of different cases. People had some high dollar parts, and sometimes they just needed to find out usage in a time frame, and it just gave them the capability to easily do that directly from the application, find the work orders that were related, and not need to do much else because they weren't heavily used, but they were costly. Similarly, and this one actually came in this morning, so I added it in. Client in Ohio wants to search for their parts, but they want to be able to reference the asset number in the inventory application so they can find those that are associated with an asset. Modify the advanced search, leveraging the relationship. So when we talk about relationships, relationships are delivered with Maximo. They are already in place and visible in database configuration, and that's what's used in Application Designer when you are extending advanced search or for the extensions that have been made in the advanced search to essentially build it. I included a link here. Yep, link still works. To show some additional information on this for folks that are getting involved with this. It's just something that's useful, so just keep that in mind, and that again is available, and yep, the link still works. Okay, just remember, link works today. Tomorrow, I don't know. All right, so this is just one of the sample screens. Essentially, again, some search capability that was added to work order tracking to help essentially make that an easier way to find the information without having to start a query, run it, go back to the where clause, and then start typing in some additional data to get you where you need to be, because for actuals, the actual item number sits in the material used as transaction table. That's not something a lot of people remember, and certainly not something an end user really cares about. But that's what they need to know to build the query by modifying the where clause. So instead, it's just been added here onto the advanced search. They fill it in. They're also able to search for a part number by pulling up the list, and they can get to them from that way. So it gives the flexibility into the application, because everybody tends to use Maximo a little bit differently and have other concerns about the data other than what the architects envisioned when the application was released. The tools to make those changes are delivered with the application and should be leveraged where practical. Actual material description, so you can look at in a case where the material used was not an item, so you can search under the description. And then actual, in this case, labor codes, you can find it more commonly. This is actually used by, this was originally used first for me by aeronautical mechanics who wanted to better find out areas that they'd worked on the plane. So it gave them a way to look at places they reported time, and then they could examine those work orders and sometimes even reference that for training. Beyond that, if we take a look over an inventory, and again, this is just the standard vendor data search, fields in the advanced search. You have the primary vendor, which is essentially in the inventory object or table, and that's where that information is stored, and then the standard advanced search provides you with the fields to search in that area. Well, sometimes you want to search the lower portion of the screen because that's where the data is for previous references, and that's in the inventory vendor object or table, or considered secondary. And this Maximo allows you the ability to leverage a relationship in the database. It's built in and delivered to allow you to search based on data entered into these fields. It makes it significantly simpler to search because you can do the search based on the fields available in the advanced search without having to modify the structured query language in the where clause. And yes, for those people that have the ability, the knowledge, and the skill to do that, you certainly still can do so. For the average user, though, they probably aren't concerned about it. They would rather have the ability available to them on the screen. And again, the tools to make the change are delivered with the product, and changes like this are support through upgrade. So I'm in 7.6, I believe, in this version, and when we go to whatever is next, the changes will still be there. Now, someone, yes, Kevin. This part's a little messy, so I'm sorry about that. Question came in for this webinar, and thank you, Kevin, on whether or not there would be a PDF with samples to download. And there were not, but I got the question, so I added the slide. So in the process, well, I could add these and there'd be just tons of them. It wouldn't fit on the slide. It would actually be a long list. And I thought, well, what's probably more useful to you are the segments that you can add to queries that are more practical and give you some additional functionality. So I've got essentially the top here is showing a query, which is pretty much what you see: the work order class, work order and activity, and work order tracking. Add a status awaiting approval. History flag 0 is task 0. and you would then add these additional segments. So if you're looking for work orders related to the default insert site of the current user, you can add this segment. The colon user, when you build a query and save it the first time, even though you've entered colon user, Maximo will overwrite that with your user and save it that way. So you'll need to modify the query and come back and then change it a second time, then save it, and then you're fine. Just something to remember, because it processes, because when you build the query and save it, it processes the query and then saves with the processed version, which is the resolved who you are as opposed to colon user. Just something to keep in mind. Next segment is for in cases where you want to be able to relate this to the current user that's been identified as the lead. You could easily replace this with reported by, supervisor, owner, and the other fields that use the person, and then the syntax will translate from who the current user is to their person ID in cases where the user ID, the login ID, the person ID aren't the same. I even have some where the user login, person, and labor code aren't the same. The syntax will get you around that. Now, some people will just be able to get away with lesser syntax, but this is the one that always works. Next one is the more complicated one, which is the messy of the messy. And when the person logged in, again, our colon user, is a member of a person group that is assigned to the work order. In this case, as the owner group, but it could, of course, could be the person group or work group, as it'll show on the screen. So this way, you can assign people to teams and use this query with other criteria you may want other than, the criteria I have up here. You might want to use this as status in waiting approval and in progress, or excuse me, approved and in progress. And then a member of a work group that's assigned to the work orders. This way, you can leverage that portion of it as well by assigning jobs to groups instead of individuals. Of course, you can do both as well. And then a little bit dealing with dates. So in this case, waiting approval over 90 days. And the key here is report date greater than get date minus 90. I mean, for SQL Server, you got to make sure you put the left and right parentheses in. For Oracle, it's just sysdate. But it gives you the same capability. And again, something that you can build out and leverage, make it perpetual, and then, of course, reusable with saved queries, which is really very important. All right, let's see what else we have here. Yes, so some reminders around save queries. Just keep in mind, the clause name is a key field. It's just something required for Maximo to put in the database. You don't see it on the list, but when you go to view your saved queries, you will see the clause name. Not that it's not important, I just don't spend a lot of time on it. The description is the thing that becomes a description on the list. So when you see your list of queries, whatever you put in that description, that is the second field. They're not, neither one's labeled, but the first one's a clause name, the second one's a description. When you fill that in, that becomes available to you as a description on a list, and where it says find navigation item, you can search for whatever you put in that description. So keep that in mind when you're filling in that second field, because that's the one that's going to help you to be able to find your query in a list of many other queries, including many of your other private queries, which gets me to the next box. Public versus private. Public just means other people can see it. No one can change it except the person who first saved it. And if you don't check the public box, then only you can see it, so you'll only be able to see it when you're logged in. Generally, private queries appear in a list higher than public queries. So public queries fall to the bottom. What you will want to do, though, in cases of public queries, you probably want your administrator to get involved to decide if you have that kind of volume, how many public queries you want to have made, particularly in cases where something pretty close may already be in place. And then the last thing, of course, is default. And that just will, if you check that, you can have one query, public or private, one query per application for the user that you can make as default, which just means when you open the application, the query is going to run. So it'll take a little longer to run to open the application for you, but you will go straight to your data. All right, let's go take a look at Maximo. So let's see if we can get to Maximo. Where did Maximo go? Oh no, nope, that's not what we want. All right, what did I do with it? There it is. All right, so let's just get this a little bit bigger. All right, so now I have my long list. Let's see, where will we start? We'll start in the assets application, and more importantly, before I actually go into Maximo, what I really should do is, let's take a look at search tips, which of course opened in another window. So again, search tips is here in help. It'll open another window. You've got some general information on searching. Only really thing I wanted to show you was wildcards. So if you don't remember what they are, they're here. There's some samples of what you can use and the kind of results you can get, as well as the others, including the dreaded null, and of course the equal sign, which is just faster. If it's indexed, it should run faster in a large number of records. So that's something else to keep in mind in terms of performance as it relates to your query. If you're looking for something, for example, based on a status, you should definitely go ahead and use equal sign, and in cases where you have a large number of records, and it will run faster. All right, so let's see what else we have here. Oh yes, so the view search tips, you're going to see that in all the applications. That's something that's going to be available to you, so you don't have to come to a certain application to find it. You will be able to see it. All right, let's take a look at attribute search first. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to find some records based on, what did I say, speed. So speed, and of course there's more than one speed in the attributes list, so I'm going to pick the right one, which is RPMs, not miles per hour. That's the one I want. 1200, but I also want another piece of criteria, because I want to get it inside a, and that's the one I want, so I'm going to go less than 2400 and hit find. So now I've come back with just a couple. I can click on it, go to Specs tab, and see somewhere in here. Yep, that's the range. Again, but because the where clause is actually stored, and this is what I meant about let Maximo do the heavy lifting, we filled in a couple of things. This is the syntax Maximo had to use to retrieve the records. Let's say, I'm going to open this up a little bit, greater than 1,000, less than 2,800. Let's see if we get more records. Yeah, you get a few more. So let me pick somebody else. Didn't have him in the list. Specifications, speed, 1200. So you have flexibility around this to give you some capability to search on these attributes and their attribute data if you in fact fill this stuff in. And that's the thing to really keep in mind. These are all 1200. Let's see if I can find somebody over 12. Let's go 15. 18, yeah. So again, it's there and it's available to you. And of course, if you want to go back and fill them out again, you certainly can. But this is one place where the where clause, being present and the fact that it's still there and active, can be useful to you to do your search. All right, so I've got this save query here. These are assets at the Bedford site that have spare parts associated. So they'll show up here on the list, and the syntax just looks at the spare part table and finds them, which is nice to have. But what happens if I'm in the inventory application and I want to find the parts in the inventory application as they relate to an asset? So I hop on over to inventory, and I'm going to go to advanced search, and there's a new field. Not something that's available out of the box. I can actually select value, get the list. I could even go to the assets application, run that query. I'll come over here to spare parts and see. I've got one. Let's see somebody with a few more. I think that one had a few more. There we go. So 6. So I'm going to return with value because I want to use this asset number 11450 as part of my search. I hit find, and I get 9. Why would I get 9? I get 6 unique numbers, but because this is the inventory application, my mechanical seal, for example, in 2 different storerooms. Still one number, but it shows up as 2 different inventory records. So that is something you want to keep in mind, again, when you're doing these searches based on relationship. And there may be some cases where, in this case, your numbers don't look like they line up, when in reality, they actually do. Just something else to keep in mind. Now, let's say, here, we'll use the quick menu, still get you to the same place. I'm going to restore my application defaults, and I'm going to look for part based on the catalog number. So out of the box, I have the standard catalog number field, 40339. That's the catalog number. I hit find. I get nothing. I'll try it again. And I'll move it into the inventory vendor search area, secondary search area for the catalog number, and I get one part, reorder details. The key is, it's down here, and Maximo modified and created the correct syntax looking at the inventory vendor table. So again, very useful. All right, purchase order. I'll go grab one of those. And the advanced search here. And I've got line item details. So 11453 is my mechanical seal we saw earlier. And I can find it on an order. Particularly useful in cases where you need to find it on an order that's out and not received, so you put in some additional criteria to help your expediter, ALG coordinator, or whoever needs to find the part that's out there and not in your storeroom and see if they can expedite delivery. All right, let's go into work orders. work orders, work order tracking. And let's see, what do we want to do? Oh, yes, I can't believe I forgot this. So sometimes, for whatever reason, people come into the application and the filter area is not there. It should be. If not, your administrator can more likely change it, but you have control over that simply by clicking on the word filter, or you can click on the triangle to open and close it. So again, that is there. You have some flexibility on these fields, not just with data, but with operators. So 1106. So I'm just going to search based on schedule start being greater than, yes, it's demo data, it's old. So not a lot, but you can use the greater than. Now, the advanced search gives you the capability to use ranges. So in this case, if I wanted something, say, reported in 2010, that's still open, and I hit find, well, don't have anything, of course not, but I go to where clause, and it's all there. So Maximo writes the structured query language, the syntax that's needed to be able to find that. If I'm looking at a hierarchy, I hit this restore application defaults so I can clear criteria I've previously entered. And then let's say I'm looking for boiler. And if you don't remember it's boiler, of course, you can always find it in the list, select it, and then that'll fill it in. Hit find, I find a few work orders. These all have boiler in the location, but sometimes I want to look at boiler and all of its kids, child locations, assets at those locations. So I put it in the search location hierarchy, hit find, get a few more work orders. Different locations, but they're all children of the boiler. More importantly, Maximo has done the heavy lifting. I do not believe if I had to write this manually that I would do it correctly. I could get it eventually, but it would take a little while. Statuses, let's say equal APPR, comma, equal plan. So the syntax, if you don't write it, Maximo can by you selecting multiple. I mentioned earlier you had multiple select capabilities. So when you do the multiple select, it's kind of hard to see, but it did the same thing. Use the equal sign for speed and an exact match, the comma to separate the criteria, and off you go. So again, pretty straightforward. So we talked about data. Oh, we didn't talk about saving. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to call it XYZZY and PLUGH. Absolutely meaningless. Just want to show you the difference. I'm going to make it public. I'm going to hit OK. So there it is. And if I want to find it, and it finds it. The clause name is not there. It's not there and available for searching, but the description is there. So as you describe it, that's what's going to make it easier for you to find it. And I'll do one other thing. I'll say greater than 1/1/2000. And let's see, that gets me a number. And overhead advanced search and the where clause, where that date is, schedule start. I don't like having this fixed date, so I want to make it get date. And I'll do -120. Let's see if I've got any created in the last, let's see, that's roughly 4 months. I don't have any. But this way, if I choose, now that the criteria is set up in this syntax, I save this, I can use it to build a KPI, a query-based report. By the way, I did mention that I would show you this. That's the button. It brings your where clause and all of its glory. So you don't have to write this. It'll do a select count. You do need to know a little bit about structured query language if you want to do something other than count. And then, of course, you need to name it. Set your target caution and alert, which gives you color. And then that is building the KPI very quickly from the query.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
Just wanted to let you know there's about 15 minutes left, or...
Oh, yeah. No, this was the last item.
Okay.
I was actually about to turn over and look at questions.
Yeah, we have a couple questions that have popped through.
So to clarify, advanced search and save queries, if not visible on the list tab, they would not be able to be available on quick search. Why would they not be? Oh, so elements, I guess that's right. Let me just verify that. I believe you actually can secure people out of certain things. I'll just look at my group. In an application in terms of their ability to query. Not something I do, but it is available. So work order tracking and let's see, you can secure them from the where clause. No, that didn't do it. Let's see, let's get more room. Yeah, little where clause. So yeah, it's true. If you do remove the where clause, view manage, you remove them from here, they'll be removed from this menu, because this menu follows the security rights. And if you take away security rights, people can't see the where clause, then you're right, they will not be able to see the where clause or even the option to get to the where clause. A copy of the available, well, everybody asked when a copy of the webinar is going to be available.
I answered that one already.
Okay. There's a way to set a save query to see all work orders created within the last 7 days. Yeah, that's reported by in the last 7, so that's actually pretty straightforward. Work order, advanced search, it doesn't really matter what data you use because I don't really want the date. What I want to do is be able to get here to the where clause, which is fill in everything else, and then I just say get rid of that actual date, get date, left, right, -7. And that'll be evaluated as report date greater than or equal to today's date minus 7 days ago. And that'll get it. And let's see. Someone's not able to open the handout.
I just tried it and it worked.
Yeah.
So
could be a firewall setting on your side.
Yeah, we can send it to you directly if you want.
Yeah, we've got the email address and you provided it. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and send that out. Doesn't look like there are any more questions. So Betsy, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Sounds
and
good.
Julie will be around to answer any other questions. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris, again for doing today's webinar. And if there are any additional questions that come up after we've ended this webinar, feel free to contact us directly and we'll be sure to answer your question. Again, this is our final webinar in our Maximo Rookie Series, so stay tuned for our upcoming webinars in 2017. We will have a link up on our website under our webinar tab where we'll be posting webinars for next year. So if you have any input or feedback of what you'd like to see, feel free to reach out to us. And for those who've asked for the handout, specifically, I will follow up with you individually and make sure you have that. But if you wanted to view any other webinars we did in this rookie series, please visit our YouTube page if you had not gotten the recording from a previous webinar. All the webinars are included on our Project Tech YouTube channel. So you ever want to review anything, feel free to check that out as a resource. And I think that will wrap it up for today's webinar. Be sure to complete the survey at the end of the webinar, and thank you again for taking time out of your day to attend. Everyone have a great afternoon. Thank you.